great. Is what I would say, and I know that my colleagues have said here, is we need to own this. We belong at the table. You belong at the table if you have that interest. And there are so many things. If you look at this list of all of the services that have a touch point from municipal government, then many of these affect your families, your own lifestyle, safety, health, all of that. And so when you look at that long list, just take a look and think about how many of those services you make use of. And there are a lot. And right now, it's almost exclusively men that are making decisions with respect to these topics and these services. And that means that we're missing a really important conversation and input of women. So the next slide, please. So the history, let's go back a little bit and look at one outstanding woman, Constance Hamilton, back in 1920. And she was a suffragette, and she was obviously had a lot of get up and go and drive to pursue this. But she became a woman in municipal politics at one point. And she served for quite a long time. And the Toronto Star wrote up about her not too long ago, so you can actually read the whole. The link is there. You can Google her. She's an amazing woman. Okay, keep it on this one. The example of the pioneer. Here's another one, Kate Rogers. Sorry?
I'm sorry, I was on the wrong slide.
Oh, that's okay. I'm assuming we're making this available to them. So, Kate Rogers is the mayor of Fredericton, New Brunswick. And so I won't go into all the details of her experience, but she's been certainly contributing a lot, again, being the only woman in that particular position. So just to show you that there are women out there that are forging the path for representation in local. On the next slide, the current situation in Canada overall is that 18% women are only 18% of the mayor roles and 28% of councillor seats. So we have to think that we're not necessarily getting all of our issues put on the table and addressed, and that the decisions are being made by our colleagues, our male colleagues. And so this is problematic in many ways because we don't have that lens being cast on decisions about the civic services. Next slide. So there is one woman, I should get a penalty for this. There is one woman on a council of 9. It's a woman, not a woman. And so that works out to about 11%. So this is really problematic for us because, again, another example of, you've got a large city, 71,594 people, and you've got one male representative making decisions as part of that. So only one there. Next slide. So if you look at Toronto, where I live most of the time, some of the time, that we've got roughly even numbers of men and women in the city, females and males, but the council there even is very poorly represented as well. So the point is that this is a phenomenon. It's not just in our local area here in Sarnia-Lambton. Next slide. So why do we want to get involved in politics? Why would we say yes to this when we have all kinds of other responsibilities in our lives, families, and all of the work and all of that? So it really is, it has a touch point for our day-to-day life. The type of leadership that we're getting from our elected officials directly affects us. And so women and men. And so since we often bear the burden and the joy of raising children and caring for our families and keeping our homes safe and comfortable, relies on the services of the city. And particularly even in things like the ice storm, where you call upon agencies, you're reliant on agencies from the city and others to ameliorate that problem. And so, and we have to have some really quick thinking decision makers that are going to be able to solve that. So, for example, when we had babies on incubators and things like that, there's probably, I'm assuming, much more concern about that or awareness of that, and that the problems of that in a power failure would be the women, typically the caregivers. And I don't want to stereotype, but we just find it that way, that the women are we as women are typically very involved in our home life and safety and care of children and things like that. And it is expanding to more men having that responsibility, but we're still not quite there yet of equity in terms of family care. And so consequently, those issues are not necessarily as prominent as they should be when it comes to issues in municipal government. Next slide. Whoop, there we go. So what do you need? Because you've probably got this. So here's your shopping list. Communication and presentation skills. Well, presentations are easy to do. Once you know what you're going to talk about, your passion, your interest comes out as well, as you can probably see with me with the hands flying. Interpersonal skills, which we know from data that women and men have different ways of expressing themselves, and that having a woman at the table allows more women to connect with them, given the different ways that we communicate. We're decisive and we're quick thinking, which you need to be in council. We really need to be deliberative, and we need to be quick thinking, especially on issues of urgency. Strategic thinker, what does that mean? That means looking beyond what's happening today, this week, this month, and thinking, okay, in say 5 years, what do I want my community to look like? How do I want it to be for my growing family, for my retirement, whatever it is? So we're able to look forward and see what it is that we need to aim for in our decisions at council. And so negotiation skills. And we have seen some tremendous examples of women in positions where at the higher levels of government who have tremendous negotiating skills and have done a wonderful job of advocating for those needs. And of the others as well, leadership ability to chair meetings, and being an effective reader, not leader, an effective reader. So you're going to be reading an awful lot of things when you step into this realm, but it is a great learning journey. Next slide. Advocating for you. So what does that mean? How do I advocate for myself? The first thing is to believe in yourself, and that means self-confidence. And it's helpful to take stock of all the good things about you that would fit into a role like this. Not, gee, I can't do this because I don't have experience. Think about wow, I can do this. I've talked to groups of people before. I communicate with a lot of people. I have a great network of friends and colleagues. So it's really about understanding, how you already are. You may not have to do very much. Quite frankly, you probably don't. And know your rights is really important. Deciding what you want. Again, we make choices in our lives about where we should be spending our time and our efforts. And so examining whether you have the opportunity to get involved, that's very important. You don't want to get in over your head, but can you make time realistically for all of the reading and the meetings and all of that? And it is possible to do with some great planning and some help from your family and your friends. And I know that that your friends and family would support you, because I think it's a very noble role to be in, and one that others would look on with awe. Planning strategy is how am I going to manage that? So how do I get myself known? How do I learn about what's involved? So those are some of the things that you would be planning for if you're interested in running for a position. Gathering support, and this is a bit of a problematic statement because, and I didn't make these up. These are actually from an official source, but Planning, gathering support really just means to take stock of those that you know would have your back, that would give you advice, sound advice, that would encourage you if you were down or having a problem, cutting through some issue. Target efforts, what we want to focus on, and expressing yourself clearly, asserting yourself. And that's not the old aggressive women thing. This is assertion, which is very, very different. And we all do relatively well, but we always need some practice too. And then being firm and persistent. So so those are some of the ones that that organization have provided. Next slide, please. So why people don't do, when you're advocating, why people don't do what you expect them to do. So why aren't there more women going for positions like this? I call it the 3 U's. Why we don't do things. Maybe we're unaware. So we need to ensure that and this is what the purpose of this evening is, to introduce you and all the other sessions that have been planned, or to help you become aware of not only the possibilities, but also the considerations in looking at these opportunities. The second one is the unable. You may not be able to do it, and that's fair. You may not have, if you have other priorities in your family or your work, that you're not able to do that. Well, that is certainly a consideration. Or the unwilling. And so, we turn this around when we see the reactions of men when the first woman appears at the council meeting, is that they're unaware. Oh, I didn't know. We haven't had women here before. And then I don't know how to deal with women. Somebody else will have to do that. So some will brush off like that. And then there's the unwillingness. I don't think we should have women here. And so we end up kind of finding our way. But there are always ambassadors and there are always supporters out there. We just need to find them. And that has been very helpful to me in my career. There are always people, typically they're silent, but at first, but they've become wonderful friends. Okay, next slide. So some of the barriers that it's not to scare you, is to have sort of an honest understanding of what some of the problems are. Gender stereotypes, that we just don't think of women being in council roles. A lack of confidence in our own abilities to do this, to perform in this role. Insufficient efforts to recruit female candidates. And this is where this organization is really taking an approach to improving that. And then difficulties in financing campaigns. So that's a monetary issue. And I think everyone is going through that at different times in our economic state. Certainly it will be difficult for anyone to be gaining funds after COVID, on the heels of COVID, when people have lost a lot of their jobs. So that's a universal problem that's going to be around for a little while. Then the absence of family-friendly people and sensitive workplaces. And that is a challenge. So when you're coming into an all-male environment, as I did, and as many have, they don't know how to behave when it comes to mixed gender environments. And so that's something we need to deal with and understand, and don't be surprised when you walk in and you get funny looks or comments. And then the gender-based violence and harassment, there is no place for that in any organization and any job. And so those are where the municipalities do have, all of them do have charters now and requirements for that. And so there are ways to through their processes and their policies to do that. So next one. And then the media, as I should say, I mentioned the last one, which was the media. The media has not been friendly to women in non-traditional public organizations. And that's again from my own experience when I first joined London Fire. That was epic for them, and really had to pick at that. So we can expect some of that, but I think we've moved forward since then, and it's getting better. We have a lot more female reporters now as well. So what does speaking up mean? Sometimes it means that we're just rallying around something, but really it's just taking action and having our views and opinions brought forward. And it's not done in a nasty way. It's done in a very professional way. And women in corporations do it all the time. So stop waiting until your ideas are ready. Got to have the courage. That's the other piece, is courage, and create your confidence by just taking action, and you eventually get comfortable with it. So it may be hard at first, but it certainly gets easier the more you do. Next. So tips from my own experience, coping with negativity from others, is seeking out a mentor. So if you find yourself running for a position or getting interested in positions, seek out a mentor, someone that you have respect for, someone that has perhaps been someone you would talk to about anything in your past problems, issues, or challenges in life. Look for those learning opportunities. It's important to help by reading what's going on in local government, newspapers, online, is to actually take a look every week and see what's happening at City Hall, and read some of the council reports. All of their reports have to be publicized. It's a public matter, so there's very, very little other than personnel issues that would be unavailable to you, and that's it. And then treating others the way you would like to be treated. That's the golden rule, which we all are aware of. And then letting the person know how negatively they're coming across. Sometimes we just need to point it out to people that it's not, you're coming across as being very negative. And so, and then don't get drawn into the drama. Okay, so it's just some from the fire service that we have found to be a little successful. The ladies, the women that I work with in the fire service. Yes.
Carol, is it okay if I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Or make a comment?
Yes, please ask questions.
When I look at number 5, let the person know how negatively they're coming across. Do you have suggestions on how you could do that? Because if that's not done carefully, you're going to create another whole set of issues.
Absolutely. It has to be done very, very well. Let's role play for a second.
Whoa. I don't know if you can see me, but I'm here.
Say something nasty or critical. Carolyn, you're talking too much on this. Keep going. That's a role play.
Difficult for me. Your computer is slow.
My computer is very slow. You have that one. My computer is very slow, even slower than me. Well, I didn't realize that was bothering you, so I'm sorry about that. But I do hope to get a new one soon. But I realized it was a bit disruptive, and I totally get why you'd be concerned about it. What is that? So again, trying to get the other person's perspective. I can certainly understand why you might be, upset about that, but and I'm acknowledging. So acknowledging is important. And we got lots of bells going here. So and so it tends to take people back up to where we've got questions.
I just was wondering if someone may have put their hand up.
Oh, we got a hand up?
No, I don't think so.
I
heard a ding dong.
So by asking questions of the person who has been behaving negatively, that starts to peel away the armor. It starts to peel away the armor when they have the opportunity to think, oh, is it really as bad as I thought it was, sitting here fussing, and now we've got it out in the open, and so we can converse about it like two adults as opposed to one critic sitting in the back. And so
okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, next slide. Let's move down from the fire stuff. So what are you going to need here in terms of your capabilities and skills and approaches? So some confidence, self-confidence is really important. What I suggest is sit down and through your daily life, start to recognize where you've done something well. It could be as simple as getting you and your family in your car from one end of the city to the other and safely and in the middle of a snowstorm. So start looking for those opportunities where you can pat yourself on the back for something. It's not in the least bit egotistical, because we spend an awful lot of time as women thinking about what we've done wrong or what might have been done wrong. We need to turn that and say, what did we do right? What did I do well today? And even if you go before bed, getting ready to go to bed, lying there trying to go to sleep, thinking, oh, this happened and this happened. We always bring up those negative things, right? But now if we turn it around and say, wow, what did I do that was good today? Well, I took out the garbage. That was good because my husband's always bugging me. So it can be very simple things, but it helps us to balance out the negatives and the doubting. It's more doubting than anything. We doubt ourselves. And so when we have an unpleasant experience or we make a mistake, then we're hard on ourselves. Women are typically much harder on ourselves than men are on themselves. And so we carry that around with us a little bit. And so the faster we can dispel those within our own minds, then it gives us room to bring in positive things. So try and dispel the negative and welcome in the positive. And that helps us to build a basis of that positive feeling over time. Next slide, please.
Sorry.
So, oh yeah, that's me, actually. That is me, a long time ago. So helpful, and that was one of my colleagues. And that's one tip I have, is that we can find the friendlies in the male, in the men that we know. And there are an awful lot of very good people, and that from a masculine side will be more than willing to give you genuine feedback and support. Find those people, because they can help interpret the male world for you. And I was reliant on that in my role, and that gentleman was one of my mentors. And it's helpful to have a male mentor as well as female mentors, because you get the full perspective, not just the one we're trying to understand. Part of what we have to do is understand how men think, how they behave when it comes to our own actions. And so having a male decipher that for us is really important. And it gives us a sense of knowledge, of knowing what's going on here. So again, I have the three U's, and I have the other three things: smart, smiles, and guts. And that means that it is a recipe for getting along in a male-dominated environment. Is we have to be intelligent, we have to work hard to and actively work to get up to speed on all the information that we need, the processes, and that is a big undertaking, whether you're male or female, when you're looking at a position in local government. There's an awful lot of reading, an awful lot of information, but once you get it, you've got it. And so that skills area is really, really important. Knowledge, you got a question?
No.
Okay. And then so that's the smarts piece. We need to understand what we're there for, and the issues and challenges and methods and approaches that and the rules that have to apply. But so that's the smarts piece. The smiles is we need to connect with people and respond appropriately to inappropriate treatment. As I've said earlier, is really to look at it differently than we have previously. It's not necessarily a negative thing. It's more likely someone to be fearful or uncertain about you. And so the last one is guts, and we need to be strong, brave, and self-confident. And finally, we need to own this. Next slide.
I have a question.
Yes.
And I'd like to say that if anyone has any questions out there or a comment that you'd like to make, be sure to just unmute and interrupt Carol Lynn like I just have done, and she won't mind.
Not at all.
So Carol Lynn, I do have a couple of questions for
Yes.
you. This slide particularly, where you talk about acknowledge that you are likely to experience resistance.
Mm-hmm.
My experience, going back a long way, is that is correct. So would you suggest, or what did you do to help you through that? You were an anomaly in the fire service. And
Only
so,
Only one.
and so how did you handle that? Did you seek out extra training, or did you seek advice from your mentors? Just exactly what gave you the knowledge? How did you learn to handle that? And how did you learn not to take it personally?
Not taking it personally takes longer than you think.
Oh yeah.
It does, especially when it's the London Free Press posting about it. So, but aside from that, I think that, as I mentioned earlier, is to find those people that will be. So developing relationships early in the role is important. What I found initially was I hid in the office, and my chief wanted me to stay up in the office. Just stay up here. You're safe up here. It was a really, really dumb idea, because it actually made the situation worse, until I finally said, I'm going down to the floor, which is where all the trucks are and the people are. I said, I'm going downstairs. Well, you shouldn't do that, I said, I'm going downstairs. So sometimes we have to overtake those protective people that want to keep us sheltered. We are women. We are strong. We don't need to be sheltered. We need to be advised sometimes, and always welcome to hear ideas and opinions, but I will make decisions about where I'm going and when, and I will bear the consequences of that. So it's being assertive about, as I mentioned earlier, it's about being assertive about how you're going to approach it. And yes, acknowledge we don't want to put them off. We want to preserve that relationship. We don't want to get rid of one where we've already got. So we want to keep those that are friends and try and build on getting the foes to turn their views again towards us, and how we can foster those relationships. And sometimes it just means getting past that. Most of them are because most of the resistance to us is fear. It's not aggression, it's fear. They're coming in, women are coming in and they're taking men's roles. And so, but we're not dealing with an angry person or a vindictive person. We're looking at fearful people, that they may not have those jobs.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
And so we deal differently with people who are fearful than we do when they're angry. And if we treat them like they're angry by responding with anger, we're not getting anywhere. Right? So if we understand that they're afraid, just like your children, if they wake up in the middle of the night, they're afraid of the thunderstorm, right? They're not angry about the thunderstorm. So we don't get into an argument with them. We attempt to console them and make them feel more comfortable. So for this, it means, hey, I understand that you play hockey. So it's trying to find those. Sometimes we have to step forward and make the first steps and not wait for men to come forward to us because of that fear. Right? Okay, next one. So expect and prepare for every behavior you can. Don't be surprised. So there's an example here. I can't actually see the expect. I've got it in front of me here. So here's an example. Let's try this for a minute. It's the second day of a week-long training scheme for municipal officials on inclusive and effective governance. So if you were in this situation, you've just begun a workshop session on violence against women. There's unease in the room, which we would expect. And some of the participants are talking to each other and disrupting the rest of the room, of the people in the room. Then a man stands up and says, what does violence against women have to do with municipal government? It's a private matter between a man and his wife. I think we should move on to more important things. That actually happened.
Mhm.
So what do you think is the problem? What's the problem here? This is a participative part for those who might have ideas. I forgot to mention that. So what is,
This
Go
is
ahead.
Nancy. I would say awareness is one of the issues.
yeah. And the second question is, how would you deal with it?
If it was me, I would turn the question back to the audience. I would actually involve a group discussion. I would want to know what other people think, rather than getting into a one-on-one hard-on conflict with a guy who really isn't ready to accept that violence against women is an issue. But when you bring in the power of more than one, attitudes can shift quickly, because usually one person might feel okay to go against the woman, standing at the front of the room, but it's unlikely that they're going to turn on all of their peers sitting around them.
Good, thank you. Other ideas out there, ladies? Thank you so much for that. That's a great response. Next one. These are the kinds of things that you can find yourself, and we find this in whether we're in government or whether we're walking down the street sometimes, or at work. Yeah, that's fine. So I'm not going to go into this one, but I wanted you to have this about how local government works. And so this is a whole separate topic, but I wanted to at least provide it for you to read.
And I don't mean to interrupt. It's Joanne Vanderhayden. Sorry. To your
Yeah.
last question, I think I would probably ask the gentleman, what does violence against women actually mean? So use it as an educational tool to actually figure out what they think that means, because he obviously has no idea, because he only thinks it's something between a man and a wife, or a man and a woman living together. So if we could actually flip the table and say, what do you think this means, and have it as an education piece, then they'd have to think about the answer and not assume that they're correct.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yes, because that's the first two U's of the three U's: unaware and unable, right? So we're helping them to become more aware of the situation and what it is, and also how to react to that, how or not to react to that in many cases. Okay, thank you for that. That's wonderful. So there's a primer here on how local government works. Again, as I said, this is not the purpose of this particular section, but it is there for your reference, so that you have, I think one of the important things is having a full understanding of what a local government is all about, and the powers and the opportunities that it offers those who stand up and serve. So it's a promotional thing for local governments, if nothing else. The next slide, please. So what we're looking at here is a call for confidence, ladies, is how I would sum this up.
And gentlemen.
Yes, and gentlemen. But since we're really focused on increasing the number of women in this, then my focus is on the confidence level that we should have, and in order to make ourselves or put ourselves in a position where we are comfortable running and confident that we will represent our constituents. And we certainly need that feminine voice in this, the women's viewpoints, because we're missing half of our society without it. And the decision making that is done and the topics are so important to all of us in the community. Okay, so our takeaway is to basically consider the opportunity, if you will, to become a key influencer toward a bright future for our community. A key influencer is really what this role is someone who has the ability to work with others to address problems in the community, to see a vision for bigger, better, brighter things in the community, health, safety, all kinds of things that can be done in municipalities and have been done in high functioning councils. And so I think really at the end of the day, it's going to take a little bit of reading and thinking about your own situation and capacity to take on this role, as you would with any other position you were thinking about. So, and the biggest challenge we have is that we will be going into, if you're successful in being elected, is you're going into an organization that is male dominated, and that can be a bit take you aback a bit, but hopefully there's some tips through this session, as well as this wonderful group of people who have come together to create the Gene Collective to help move past those barriers and open up opportunities. So my hat's off to my colleague here and our fearless leader for that. So at this point, I would take any questions if you have. Do we have time for some questions, or
yes.
open it up to the group, because we have folks here too?
Shall I stop share?
Or
Or
no, I don't think we need to stop share. We can stay on. And are there questions that you have? Other thoughts? Have any of you actually considered seriously running for a position?
It's Joanne Vanderhayden. I actually am the mayor of Strathroy Caradoc and
Yes,
the
you
president.
are.
So yes.
Your worship.
Oh, no, Joanne tonight. It's Joanne. I have been involved in politics. I run 8 elections, and I'm right now the president of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. And I guess if there's one thing that I could share, it's don't let everything get in your way. Just do what you know you can do and move forward. We put so many barriers in our own way and trip over them when we really don't need to.
Thank you. That's from someone with tremendous experience. We're honored to have you here. I'm sorry I hadn't acknowledged you earlier. I couldn't see you, but that is wonderful advice. And
Joanne, you are a role model for
Yes,
all of us.
you are.
To those that are watching, thank you. I hope that you are inspired and encouraged to become involved and make change. In the words of Jacinda Ardern, we can carve our own path, be our own kind of leader. We need to create a new generation of leadership. And that's what we're doing. Together we can do this, and I encourage you to try with us. Thank you so much. You take care.
Thank you.